Morning, everyone.
Morning, sir.
By 9:10, we'll start our class. Okay. Okay, start our class. Anyone who can please lead the prayer before we start?
Honor, sir.
Okay.
In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Lord, thank you for this wonderful day. Bless us. Um, Give us guidance sa pagtudlo ni Sir and give Sir strength to give us more knowledge about this subject, Lord God. Bless us, O Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Okay, amen. So, good morning again, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. I hope no, that you have taken your breakfast already. Okay, because we do have a lot of talking. So, I might be asking other, siguro, I might be asking you to at least, no, uh, just give some comment or opinion on on every things that we will be discussing today. Okay, so today we'll be discussing another topic that will be part of on how are we going to understand the let's say it's not totally it's not really uh, it's not really part of the research, but actually it is something that we should remember. Okay, once we are doing our research. So what am I talking about? Diba? Why is it part of the research and why is it so important that for us to know and for you to know as well, no? Because you'll be creating your own action research. So I think it will be a good help as well. So actually, I'm talking about ethics. You know what's ethics, class? I think you have heard the word already, no? The word ethics. Okay? Kabulo mo si ethics. Kabulo ka si ethics, Christian. Tudtod.
Wala, sir.
Wala ka bulo si ethics. No, di ba nagkuman mo, 21st century man mo, nag-philosophy pagani mo na. Can anyone give me a brief explanation about what is an ethic? Uh, we always heard that word every now and then, no? Unethical kay ka. Ethical kay ka. So what do you mean by those words? What do you mean by that word, ethics? How about you, Carol? Do you know what's the word ethics, Carol?
A system of moral principles, sir.
I'm sorry, Carol.
A system of moral principle.
Okay, it's something to do with the principle. No, it is something to do with the moral principle. Thank you so much for that, Carol. So when we are doing our research method class, you have to remember that we should always follow the moral principle. Okay, you are not creating a research that is out of some humanitarian reason. Okay, there should always be a humanitarian reason. Why are you taking this research? Why are you conducting this research? Diba? Because your respondents are not animals, your respondents are not materials. Those are not things, diba? You're dealing with real people. You're dealing with a real human being. So why follow some ethics while doing the research? Okay, so what do you mean by research ethics? Okay, actually, according to Nicholas von Hoffman, he said that when you are so preoccupied with defending our privacy against insurance investigators, dupe, sleuths, espionage men, divorce detectives, great checkers, and etc. So according to him, on this statement, ethics is a discipline, or it is a discipline study, or morality, and morality asks the question on what should be one's behavior. Okay, so by the word itself, discipline study or morality, it means that you need to consider also the personal status of your let's say respondents. Okay, so let me give an example. No, one of your let's say one of your classmates or one of the groups conducted a research about how the community works in dealing with waste disposal. But the problem is you cannot just say that that the community itself is really uh, a target, okay, in center of a improper waste disposal management, okay. So what is the idea behind that one? That's kind of situation. Actually, the problem is you cannot just kind of quiet. Do not justify the community as one of your target of the kuanang improper waste disposal. Okay? Ano bitang you are actually you are kuanang generalizing the idea that most of the people there, or let's say all of the people there, are not really educated when it comes to proper waste disposal. So once you conduct the study man gud dayon, the problem will be sa may tabo dayon. There might be offensive na mga kwan. You might be utter some offensive words that will be against the morality or the moral kanang kwan from the moral of that kanang community. Okay? So in this nga peaceful ang imuhang pag-conduct sa research, especially on their behavior on dealing that waste disposal management, di na doon siya ano, di na doon siya kanang kwan, di na siya efficient. Kaya mga tao mo, yun naman dahil nga, dili na lang may magpa-conduct sa research, kay mo kini mo ka na. Or di ba, kung mag-conduct ng research po, we need to ask permission to to the head of the barangay. No? So, ngayon na ba ka sa barangay chairman ka nga, sir, ka or ma'am, pwede may mag-conduct og kanang study din ni kinabawaan mo gud mo nga hugawan mo din nga lugar. Do you think it's a proper word to say hugawan mo din nga lugar? Di ba? I think it's not. So you have to consider you need to consider that in every study that we're creating, there should be discipline. Okay, you need to counter part that one with moral values. Okay, just like what Carol said, it's all about moral principle. Okay, it is just not about the kwan lang. It's not just a requirement, but also it has something to do with how we deal with other people. Okay, remember, you're asking them a permission. You are trying to win their kwan ba? To win their kanabitang what do you call this one? Uh, you're trying to win their kind of attention. Okay, so what do you mean by kwan? By ethics, Jude? Actually, it came from the word ethos. It's a Greek word, okay, which means character. It is the systematic study of value that is conceptualizing the good, the bad, the right, the wrong, and the general principles that justify applying to different concepts. Okay, so it's about moral character. So like I've said kanina, no, it's all about moral. Okay. So basically, there are two types of ethics. We have the descriptive ethics, which asks what does the culture or society believe in a morally correct. So that is also one of the things that we need to consider when we conduct research, or let's say when we are targeting a specific subject in a community. So you need to, I think it's mandatory for us to consider what is the culture of that community and how are they dealing with those culture. Uh, you as a researcher, are you willing, di ba, to conduct a study despite of the different cultures that you have? And then another also is the prescriptive ethics. Okay, so this one is targeting the different questions like how should I behave as a researcher and what character traits should I cultivate. So basically, we're not only talking about the one here, the subject or the respondents. We're also talking about you as a researcher. Okay, wouldn't you mind asking people, regardless of their let's say lifestyle status? Okay, okay na ba sa imuha nga mangutana ka sa usa ka grupo sa pamilya nga utang ta lugar they are not really uh, let's say fine, not 100% or not totally educated about the things that you're doing that or the things that you're about to conduct. So those are the things that you need to consider as well. Okay. So why do you think this ethics in research is important? Actually, you will have many questions to answer, and you will need a framework from which to answer those questions. So since you need a solution, you need an answer about this problem, diba? We have discussed it already about how are you going to formulate basically a framework, no, to conduct a study in a systematical way. But the problem is, how will you do it? Is your framework well prepared? Was it, let's say, was it established in a very proper way? Or will it be so effective? Is it, uh, are you doing it right or wrong or etc. Diba? Those are, we are considering those let's say curiosities as well, diba? But at the other side, we are also doing some decision making. So the decision making will fall into two: the deductive or the principle based reasoning and the inductive or case based reasoning. So you have options, okay, when you are doing this research ethics. You have options. So what are those options? Okay, if your option is on the deductive, or your research is based from principle, then you'll start with an ethical theory. Okay, and then you continue with a specific principle, develop rules, and make judgments. Okay, so just like choosing a respondents, no. Again, if you are dealing with this improper waste disposal, and then you need to consider, I think there's a lot of sample that you need to consider, especially when you are doing when you are interviewing, di ba? Every individuals in the community. So you will start with an ethical theory. Okay. How do you start with an ethical theory? I do not just depend on other people's speculation. You have to observe it by yourself. Okay, as a group, no? Visit the place and then do some ethical theory. Diba? Theory mo dito una dana because the theory will now be your basis on doing something to convert that theory into a principle. And what do you mean by principle, gani? Those should be supported by facts. No? So kung facts ang imuhang kapangita, observe the place na naa ka dito as in person. Okay? Do not just ask other people and then you just after hearing those speculations coming from them, you just have to base your research on their speculations. So what will happen there? Di ba? Dili siya may mong strong. There's no one foundation. So you have to visit the place, for example, no? And then when you found out, or when you find out that those, for example, no, those speculations that you've heard, you visit the place, and then you found out nga, okay, it is really gonna fun, it's really gonna true. Then of course you'll be asking the officials, no? You'll be developing rules and how will you conduct your research on that specific community without developing offensive kanang action. Then after that one, after developing your rules on actually collecting some facts on other people's kanang observation as well, or let's say data's coming from the barangay hall or data's coming from those people who are in position sa community, do your judgments. How do you do your judgments? Of course, you conduct research. Okay, you conduct your study. So by what means? Diba? You follow the systematical way. Okay, you do the kind of the basically you just have to do the man. Every chapter, no, you have to make every chapter substantial until you come up with this questionnaire or this interview questions, there's survey questions, because those questions that you'll be asking to them will be your judgment. Okay, and then the data collections that you'll be doing also is let's say it's also part of how you do the judgment, no? Because the conclusion will always be about facts. That's the point of doing the research, okay? So this is how we do the deductive reasoning: ethical theory, principle, rules, judgment, etc. So this is how we do the shortcut, on explaining what the ethics in research. How about in the case-based reasoning or the inductive? Okay, actually, decisions that we have made, it's precedent. What we mean by precedent? So information, no, based from what you believe. Okay, it's something that you believe, something that you just something that you have come up with. No? Okay, you look back at those decisions and combine them in order to make judgment. And also judgment reflect backs on rules. Okay, so it's about what you see and what you know. What you see is when you observe this. this actual kanang situation. What you know is something that you have come up already with your mind on what to do. Okay? Kada bitang nagsumpaki bitang ang imuhang kwan, ang imuhang let's say plans on that, or let's say I think you can just visualize naman siguro if you have heard some speculation about a specific place na walay proper waste disposal, no? Or walay proper waste management. And then rules reflects on our principles, okay? That's the reason why, class, you have to make sure that you have RRL, okay? Review related literature. Why do we need some review related literature? It's because we need to it's not something that we need to know, but we need to make sure, no, that there are supporting facts and informations that will back us up kung maglisod na tao explain sa ato ang problem, or maglisod tag-answer sa atong problem. Because once you go blank, okay, for example, no, when you are, siyempre, you will defend every chapter of your plan, every chapter of your research, and also you have to defend the title of your research. Once you go blank on defending your title about how are you going to do that research, it's very impossible for you to conduct the research na dayon. Especially if you don't have articles that can back you up to support you on that specific problem that you're after. Okay? So you should be based everything should be based from facts. Everything should be based from reliable resources. Okay? You have to know that one. You have to know that rule. Okay? Just do not just make statements na gikan sa imong powerful and imaginative mind. Okay? Labi na kay dahil flower ang imong nahuna na imong na ibutang sa imong introduction. And then what will happen to your introduction? It will lead you to nothing. Di ba? Puro na flowery words. Then what's the point? What's the is it nourishing everything sa imong kan? Sa imong research? Is it beneficial? I don't think so because you are the one that creates the information all by yourself, not coming from some articles that your research should be based from. And then principles reflects back to the ethical theory, di ba? Of course, wala man kay choice because once you create the ethical theory, you have to prove it na your theory is correct because that is how you create principle. Okay? So question about deductive and inductive research principles or reasoning.
Wala,
Nasabtan
sir.
ang okay, nasabtan
Wala,
ang
sir.
difference between deductive and inductive. Nabawaan ang ilang
Yes,
difference.
sir.
Okay. Uh, if there's none, okay. So, what is have to do with research? Okay, there's a question. How is ethics affecting your research? Okay, ethics is about creating a mutually respectful relationship with the research population. This is what I'm talking about. Subjects are pleased to participate. Okay, uh, like for example, some experience, no, when I was in college, or okay, when I was in college, uh, it's not that kind of it's not that easy to conduct class to ask some participants when you do some survey questioning and then you have this interview because nang good some people are very uh, hesitant to answer, especially bitaw when you're asking them why do you because for example na like I've said sa ato ang kaniagi nga I do have this research and it's talking about how is the science education affecting choice of these students on kanabitang on taking their course. Okay, like for example, most of the students do not pick a course nga na ay science subjects. No? When you ask them, they will answer nga. Of course, their answers will be based from what they have experienced. Okay, kung isa lang nga, lisod magud kayo, labi chemistry. Okay, chemistry, you have to list the chemistry. Lisod magud kayo, kay biology, di ko ganaha, you have to list the biology. And some of them will just say nga, okay naman ang science. Wala siya problema sa ako. So, di siya part sa imuhang, siya mahimong part sa imong research because you are trying to, kondaya, you are trying to select people that are not totally into science education. So, those are the things that also that you have to remind yourself as well, di ba? You have to please the subjects to participate. Dili kay maghatag lang kag di kay maghatag lang kag kundi questionnaire and then hulak lang ka mahumanaan and then wala kay basis. Dobi lugar ila taka-takaan ra na. Di ba? That's why gani, after the questionnaire, interview them. Okay? Because if you, oh my God, ang ilang magong kanibitang, ito talaga, ang inyong magong communication, my God, is mahimong, oh my God, mas mahimo siyang basis sa imuhang study. Mas strong siya because naakay kanibitang, let's say, uh, naay root, no? Naay root ang imuhang kanang conduct na study. Then also community that regards the conclusion as constructive, especially when you are concluding the community itself. Like I've said kanina sa example, when you are concluding this community ng hugawan, okay? But you as a researcher, you knew nga ikaw pud sa imong kaugalingon hugawan pud ka at the same time. So how will you support your research if you yourself cannot just do proper waste disposal or proper waste management, no? So those are one things like that. Okay. So an ethically insensitive researcher can leave the research setting in pandemonium. So ito, sabi Kimber, it's pandemonium. So not by the word nga demon jud ha. It's not about being demon. Okay. It means that one good. You will leave your research as a mess. Okay. It will lead you to nothing actually. It will just be something that you just made up. Something that you just created out of nowhere. So you have to be sensitive enough on actually conducting your research, because if you are not sensitive, especially on the emotion of the subjects, no, or your respondents, it will lead you to nothing. And then although you have conducted the research well, but morally I don't think so. Okay, you are not paying those you are not paying those people, or you're not paying your respondents to answer your survey perfectly. Okay, you're not paying them actually. You're just asking them their opinion, their insights. So you have to be respectful. Okay, so it could be either the researcher, the institution, or the cause that he or she seeks to promote. So those are the things that will be affected. Okay, once you lead your research into pandemonium. Okay, be mindful about that one, especially when you will be conducting your research. Now, failure to treat subjects with respect can result in the data, misleading data, inconclusive data, and also biased. So remember those this three one let's say three ka result if you set your research in pandemonium. Okay, it's very obvious. Okay, it's not just something that kwan lang, basta-basta lang ang research. No, it's not like that. Okay? Kwan, you have to be kinda careful. Scientists involved in the intense and demanding enterprise of research often overlook the interests and perspectives of the research subject, and subjects may respond with lies and subterfuge. Okay? So, they will not answer you in the proper manner. Okay? Kung ikaw researcher, tapulan ka mangutana, tumakon po ko din tinapulan. Okay? Mura nangutana kasi mong classmate kung humot ba ka pero baho kag ba. Kung sa pagtubag si mong classmate na, di ba? Sumay mo kang bias. Bayin kag, humot man ka. But as a whole, you're not. Okay? Sanina lang nimo ang humot. Baba nimo dili. So subjects may respond with lies and subterfuge. So imagine that. So it will lead you to inconclusive data, biased data, misleading data. So careful, okay? Okay, the problems encountered in behavioral research, according by National Commission, includes, okay, remember this one, lack of informed consent, okay? That's the reason why when you are conducting your research class, you have to ask for, let's say, a letter, okay? Actually, your teacher will give you a letter. Your advisor, actually, your research advisor will give you a letter. Okay? It's a consent. So you have to ask a consent coming from the heads that you as a researcher or an interviewer is kuan ka, uh, you were based from uh, real people, okay, or professionals, or you as a group are professionals. So you have to ask for a letter of consent, okay? No debriefing. It's about restoration of an emotional state equal to what was experienced before the experiment, okay? So, uh, especially, I think you have to be polite when you are asking your subject on what your research is all about. Kung talaga sila, usa din na siya, basta mga nakita na itong survey, bitaw sa, for example lang, not in a political aspect ka, pero sa mga survey sa mga presidential, di ba? Some people will ask, usa din na siya di ay, di mo ko na yan ni Kwan, kay mo kanimo na kung gusto. Di ba? You have to, Kwan, you have to uh, give some briefing to those people na imo kandakan sa study. And also, deception was a standard tool, okay? So, do not deceive other people's kwan, kanang answer, okay? Or do not deceive your subject. So, you have to, kwan, do not just lie about what your research is all about. That's the point ng good. Okay? Just be honest and be polite all the time, okay? And invasion of privacy. Okay? If you are lacking of consent, then that person will not allow you to to let's say conduct an interview with him or her, because if you ask him or her forcefully, you are invading his or her privacy, okay? And you're as a researcher, we are not allowed to, okay? We're not allowed to do that because we have to respect their space. If you're asking for this, if you're looking for this answer only, do not go beyond. That's the reason, gani class, you do not ask the word why. Okay? Ngano man. Kung ngano man mo if you're asking why to them, again, there will be branches of questions that will interlude. Okay? So why? If you talk about interlude mo that's a that's a space, di ba? That's a very deep space, a wide space actually. And if you're talking about ngano nga na man ma'am, ngano nga na man, ngano man. You're invading her privacy already, because you are not satisfied of his or her answer. If his or her answer is like this, like that, accept, and then try to assess if correct ba or yung answer or dili. And it's prerogative na nimo sa researcher na if you will include that one to your study. Okay? If his or her question is quite confusing, then try to eliminate that question, or try to eliminate that answer sa respondent nimo, because that will not be a good help. No? Okay, scientists attempted to critically examine questionable research practices and to recommend changes, but could not. Because again, once you are doing this investigatory methods, once you're observing this investigatory method, it's very hard for you to change the process from word. Like, I think all of the information we need in the scientific investigation was already mentioned. So what's the point of changing one of them, or changing one of those methods? So if you're if you are let's say no, if you don't want that method, then don't do that. But you cannot just eliminate or change that method. No, don't do the method. Okay, it's a very simple job to do. If you are not scientifically minded, then ask other people who are scientifically minded. If you're not curious about your research, then try not to join your research. Diba? Because you'll be a big mess. That's why gani, no? I've read all your answers ato ang activity last time. So, I'm sorry to say, no, I think you are not ready to conduct your research. You are not ready to do your capstone research because lacking jud mo og kwan class. I'll be honest with you, ha. Okay na ba sa inyo, ha? Do you need my
Yes, sir.
opinion?
Yes, sir.
Do
Yes,
you need
sir.
my opinion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay,
Yes,
my
sir.
opinion is you are not really prepared pa to conduct the research. You need to conduct more study. So what if also What do I mean by conducting more study? Do more reading pa, no? Expose yourself to more on the on how on the process of doing the research, because some of you, di ba, I asked for the resources to give me respondents, no? Isa ka to grupo. Nakurat sad ko kay you only have two resources. And I was like, how come you have this long kanang answer on your RRL, but you only have this two type of resources, two reliable resources. So how about the other resources? Di sila gikan sa kwan, di sila gikan sa article. Are they just made up? No? So, nangyayari ang situation ba? So I was like, okay, some of the research questions are not research questions or were not research questions. So you have to you have to practice. If you have time, try to do some reading pa. Try to at least uh, evaluate yourself if or evaluate your work. Okay? Do not be scared to ask uh kuan na bitang advices from your teachers, or you're afraid to be you're afraid that your work will be criticized, because criticism is always be part of conducting the research, no? Kaya man jud mo dalon jud, especially when you are now having your research title, if you have to defend that one. Your title is not yet not the title that you are expecting inyong buhaton, but you have to defend that one. That's the reason why we do have research questions, okay, to guide us why we pick that problem. Okay, nasabtan ba akong point? I hope I have made myself clear ha sa ako ang sa akong comment sa inyong activity. Okay, I'm not a judgmental person here. Okay, I'm not being judgmental. I just want to express my comments. No, since I cannot do it one by one. So as a general na lang. Okay ba? Okay na sa inyo?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, kan. But you're doing a good job, Mampod. It's kan, Mampod. As a student, no, you're doing a good job on picking your problem, your research problem, and etc. Okay, let's continue. So there are six norms of scientific research. First is the valid research design. Of course, we're done dealing about this one. No? Takes into account relevant theory, methods, and prior findings. Okay. So if you don't have reliable resources, if you don't have backup ng mga articles na pwede makasupport sa inyong uh, research, then your research will be misleading. Okay? So you have to search for a valid research design. You have to choose, no? So just like what happened about sa inyong conceptual framework, most of your conceptual framework were just based from what you have researched on Google. But are you sure that those are you sure that those framework is really effective and was properly created? Okay. So do not make things complicated. Choose something that is very simple but very understandable at the same time. Okay. Do not do not seek for impressiveness. Search for something that is simple but understandable. Next is competence of researcher. As a researcher, you have to be competent. Okay, you are capable to carry out the procedures. Okay, take note. This is not just I am not giving you pressure, but as a STEM student, man good. No, once you are a STEM student, ang ang expectation na sa inyo is that you are basically scientific minded, di ba? Yes, you are mathematically, scientifically minded, and that's the reason also that that you are, let's say, the educational systems also is imparting some philosophy, because the philosophy there will also be part of how will you manage yourself on handling your persona as a STEM student, di ba? So you have to be a competent researcher, or let's say you have to be a competent student. Okay, not in a not na dili siya competition, ha, di siya competition, but you have to be competent every time nga kuan you are kalibitang dealing with scientific and mathematical nga mga procedures. Okay, you should be capable of doing those procedures. Okay, also identification of consequences. So assessment of risk and the benefits. So it's all about maximizing and minimizing, maximizing the benefit and minimizing the risk. That's the point of knowing the ethics class, because you have to be informed about the benefit of conducting the research and also the risk that you'll be dealing with once you conducted the research. Okay? So I'm talking about kind of itong mga, let's say, unexpected events like or unexpected happenings like usahay, no, when you conduct research, mag-ulan, usahay, mga batasan na itong ma-interview, usahay po, dili welcoming ang mga tao nga interview, and so things like that. Selection of subjects, okay? Since we're talking about ethics here, it should be something that is appropriate to the purposes of the study, representative of the population that will benefit from the research and appropriate in number. So, I think kabalo naman madani siguro. That's the reason why gani we have to put the respondents of the study. Which group are we Which group are we trying to convince to participate? So, uh, kuan lang, a short story. I have a student din sa Moist, and she asked me about the title of her research or the research. So she gave me this research title, and then what I did is that I asked her, how did you come up with this research title? She said, sir, this is not the title that we intended to pass, to submit. I'm sorry. It was the instructor who gave us this research title, and I asked her, which group are you which group are you trying to cover? Okay, which group are you trying to study? She said, naa din na, sir. Okay, imagine that question na a college student, ha, conducting her under research, ha. I said, yes, it's very important because once you are conducting your study, you have to rely on the specific subjects. Okay, I'm not talking about subject in academic. I'm talking about people involved. Okay, I'm talking about the respondents. So ay nadali nga na din, sir. Usa ka, sir, maayo, sir. Okay, so you have to be selective when it comes to your subject. So I told them, asa man yung gusto, sayon ra. So ano din siya, pwede ra ka grade 10, sir, then go ahead. Choose grade 10. So yan na. Okay? Because kung wala mo good kay, kung dili mo kang selective sa imong subject ng good class, imong research mo broad, di ba? And once it's broad, kapoy na kina siya kanas. Telling you, kapoy yun na. Okay? Also, voluntary informed consent. Okay? That is about, you know, doing some consent letters, asking proper agreement on the researcher and the respondent. So it should be something, it's a case-to-case basis at the same time. Okay? Obtain before the study begins without undue threat or inducement, with enough information and agreement to participate. So if the subject or the respondents do not want to participate, respect his or her decision. Do not force them. Okay? If you force them and good, it will mislead to it will be a misconduct sa imong study. So it's just not good. It's not good. Okay? And of course, compensation for injury. It's not about I am not talking about monetary compensation. I'm talking about how are you going to give remedy. Let's say it's not totally a remedy, but something in return sa imuhang respondent. Okay. It is responsibility for what happens to the subject. Okay. But does not require compensation. So if your question is quite offensive, say sorry. Simple things. If your study is quite misunderstood by the respondent, then state your reason. Explain everything that you can explain to them. Okay? Do not just say something that will add more on the offensive part of the respondent. Okay? Inom ito kag, wala kay batasan, ma'am. Ayun ka nga, ikaw sa wakay batasan eh. Do not, you cannot just answer your respondents with those answers, no? So you have to say, okay, sorry, kay ma'am na, sige ma'am, mulakaw na lang ko, sir, mulakaw na lang ko, sir, salamat kasi mong pagtubag. Okay? Okay. So generally, if you do the research, it's all about collaborative and multidisciplinary in nature. Okay, collaborator like the researcher and the funding agency, for example, are required to stay committed to agreements they enter into. So if we have this if we open our research in a constructive criticism, it will be open for the bias and some I'm sorry, prejudicial comments. Okay, there will be prejudice na may tabo. Okay? And kung na prejudice mong good, if you talk about prejudice mong good, those are misjudgments, di ba? So, kanabitang, if you don't add multidisciplinary, let's say, action in your research, it will lead you to constructive criticism. And some of us man good, kung kitag patience man good as a researcher, you have to be impatient all the time. Okay? If your patience is too short, do not conduct the study. I'm telling you, yung ano man, maglabarin mo ulo. Okay? Di mo madawat nga pangit yung research dyan. Kung ino ka sa imuhang matang talaga, no? You have this research problem already and then you wanted your research advisor to at least give a comment about what your problem is all about. Then if your advisor will say, pangit ninyo ang research, uy, di siya measurable dyan. Naglasong na rin ka. Okay? Naglasong rin ka, nag-post ka sa Facebook, give-back na yung mga advisor. Kinsa ka para mag-ingon na sa among research, kabalo di ka ni etc. What's the point of doing the research if you are a researcher is very impatient? Okay? It's a very it's a misconduct. Okay? Asa ang ethic ni mo dana? Asa ang ethics dana? Are you morally prepared to conduct your research? Diba? So non-compliance with ethical standards of research can be classified into two. A research misbehavior and a research misconduct. Okay? Those two things actually will be the result. Now, kung ikaw, researcher po ka, butang talaga, no, let's say in this manner, na mo siyang obligation nimo. Estudyante mo good ko, sir, so obligation din ako mag-conduct of research. Actually, no. Uh, on the real life situation ng good class, every day we can, let's say, kanabatang naate curiosity. Every day, di ba? We are so curious about things. And then, once you are curious about things, you're actually conducting a research, no? And what do you mean by conducting a research? You are trying to look for a solution. You're trying to look for an answer. Although it's not in a scientific way, although you are just doing it in a, let's say, in a in a day-to-day basis nimo, normal lang siya, but actually you're doing it in a research way. Okay? Because you're trying to look for a solution. But again, if you cannot just accept the solutions that was lead to you, then there's no way that you'll be finding the right answer. Because you'll be, one, gabi ka repulsive when it comes to accepting answers. Okay? So that will lead you to research misbehavior and misconduct. So let's make it quick then siguro. So deviation from generally accepted research practices are considered unethical. So these are the following, let's say, these are the following research practices that are unethical. First is the conflict of interest. Like, I think it's very, siguro, understandable naman siguro. So again, do not force your subject or respondents to answer your research or your problem. Okay? That's why you have to choose you have to choose your subjects according to their interests. Okay? Dili. Okay, sige. Next is poorly maintained research records and laboratory notebooks. Okay? No, what? Let's say no reliable resources, no reliable or no factual articles that will support your research, no actual records on what your research is all about. Again, RRL is a very important part of this because you need a backup plan for this one. Another is the violation of animal welfare and handling laboratory test animals, okay, in a scientific manner, okay, especially when you are especially when you are conducting study which is part of the body, okay, kana siguro. Submitting for publication one paper to two different journals and concealing such act from both publishers. Or short, do not recognizing the one that is the one that created the article. Okay, when you're submitting a publication, you have to make sure that you are also acknowledging all the people behind your research. Not just acknowledge yourself. Okay, you're not the one who's doing the research, man. Good. Again, no man is an island. Of course, you'll be asking some advices. Acknowledge their advices. Acknowledge their presence as well. Okay? Kani, sabotaging your colleagues' work. Okay? Cheating, copying your others' work. Okay? Sabotaging by the means of copying their work. Okay? Splicing their works. Make it your own, and then at the end of the road, you just have to say, nga, ako malitanan. But on reality, it's not your work. Actually, you're just cutting pieces and then pasting them, copying other words, pasting them. Okay? Murabag sa upat ka sa napulo ka resources nimo, every second paragraph of their articles, kina-copy paste nimo and then gibutang nimo sa imong paper, imong gi-publish and voila, imo na dayo. Okay? So, it's unethical. Also, guest or ghost authorship. If you talk about guest or ghost authorship, kada kita nagbuhat-buhat kag article nga wala malay di man tinuod ang tao nga nagbuhat na. You are acknowledging people in your published work which is ghost, okay? Not even real, okay? Nabutan na ka kaning ang author dani kisipod siya Pilato. But pag research dayon sa doctor, ito professional nga mga article published or mga publishers, wala gisipod siya Pilato dani sa imuhang part. That's unethical as well. Okay, non-inclusion of outliers from a data set without explaining your reasons or for doing so. Okay, also proceeding with a presentation of your results without going through a peer review process. Okay, that's the point of doing the group work. Okay, ayaw pag kuan oy hinangul. Okay, dili pa sa kung magbuhat kag research nimo, seek some advice from your controls, from your peers or from your friends or from your group mates. Ay pag ija o agud ya kay dili ka pro, no? Enhancing significance of your research, okay? If the if the if the kanabitang let's say if the critic teacher will say that okay, ang imong research kay inyani man ni, do not okay, let's say do not dispose your research. Instead, try to enhance your research. Okay, try to add more information. Try to make it more reliable. Try to make it more concrete, di ba? Enhance. Do not just lagi ba pangit kitong research ba ako nang ilabog uy. Ayaw. Remember, you have you have installed so much hard work na go with it, di ba? Enhance. Uh, Next is discrepancy between a procedural description and what was actual carried out. Okay, it's all about kung being honest and then improper waste disposal. Okay, so okay, I think some of these are not let's say we'll continue this kanang class this Thursday then siguro. We'll be talking about plagiarism because I know that you are best kayo sa plagiarism, Jude. Tinuod ba? Plagiarize ba mo klase yung research? Kana mga ani wala na tubag okay, tinuod man. No. You are plagiarizing other people's work, no? Wala na tubag, tinuod siguro. No. Please do not plagiarize. We'll talk about plagiarism next time. Okay. So that's it for today. I hope you have learned something. No, any questions regarding our topic?
Wala, sir.
No, sir.
Wala. So I hope no mo idulot sa inyo ang mga lessons. Okay, because you'll be what do you call this one? You'll be applying that one po sa inyo ang research po. Okay? So that's it everyone. Thank you so much for listening and we will now proceed to your next class. Bye. Thank you.
Bye, sir. Thank you.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
sir.
Bye,
Thank you.
sir.
Goodbye. Bye.